Hey guys, JT Shaver here, and if you want to learn how to create that popular light and airy feel in your photos, I'm going to show you my workflow to achieve that look in Lightroom in just a few minutes. There's honestly not a whole lot to creating this look. I'm only going to be using basic settings and then showing you some optional split toning effects to get a really nice high-key look, and that's going to be perfect for things like portraits and wedding or engagement photos. So here's the photo that we're going to be working with, and this is from a wedding shoot done by Michael Stevens, who is a fantastic award-winning photographer based in San Luis Obispo, and he kindly provided me with this image to use for this tutorial, so make sure to check him out at mstephensphoto.com and on Instagram at mstephensphoto, and that's Stevens spelled with a PH and not a V. So I'm going to come and move over to our before image here. So because this photo was taken in RAW format, by default it lacks contrast and color, and so it's up to us to add some life into it so it more closely resembles the actual moment that the photo was taken. So the first thing that I'm going to do is increase the temperature, and I do this with a lot of portraits just to warm them up a tiny bit. So I'm going to take the temperature from 6150 up to just 6250, and it's a super subtle change and you might really never notice it. But overall, I think it adds a little warmth to the image that makes the final product a little bit better. Next, I'm going to come down and increase the exposure to about 1 1/3 stops. And most of the light and airy feel is achieved with the next 3 sliders, and the first one that I'm going to change is the highlights. So I'm going to bring that up to about 35. Then I'll come down to the shadows and increase that to about 40. And then I'll come down to the whites and increase that as well to about 45. So now we have a really nice bright image, so we just need to make some final tweaks. To add a little bit of contrast back in, I'm going to take the black slider down, somewhere around -20. And then I'm going to take the texture slider and move it to the left to about -10. And that's going to just smooth the skin just a little bit, and then I'm going to reintroduce some of that clarity using the clarity slider, and I'll bring that up to about 20. Now, one trick to make it a little more dreamy looking is to take the dehaze slider and move it to the left. So I'm going to take the dehaze and take that to about -10, and then I'm going to come down and work on the colors. So I'm going to bring the vibrance up to about 35, and then I'm going to take the saturation slider and bring it down to about -25. I do this to a lot of images, and it gives the photo a nice natural kind of color level, and a lot of time it will smooth out the colors in the skin. So this time I'm bringing the saturation down just a little more than I usually would to desaturate it a bit, because I know I'm going to add some colors back in with a split tone later. So that's pretty much 90% of getting the light and airy feel, and the next thing I'm going to do is come into the tone curve panel, and I'm going to bring the shadows up and the highlights down, and add a couple more points to keep the overall contrast of the image. So with this left point, I'm going to keep it on the left side but bring it up to about 5%. And then the top right point, I'm going to bring down to about 95%. And then I'm going to add a point here and try to get it right where these two lines intersect. And one more point up here and get it where these two lines intersect. Now you could stop here, but to add a little more style to this photo and kind of play off the skin tones and the color of his tux, I'm going to give it a subtle split tone. So I'm going to come into the split toning panel, and if you hold Alt while you're dragging the hue slider, you can kind of preview the color at 100% saturation. So I'm going to set the hue to about 45, and then I'm going to come down to the shadow slider and hold Alt and drag that over. And I'm going to set that to about 225. Next I'll bring the saturation for the highlights up to about 15. And then I'll bring the saturation for the shadows up to about 35. Now I can use the balance slider to kind of balance the highlights and the shadows and where they apply to the image. So I want this to be a lot warmer, so I'm going to bring the balance up to about 75. And that will add more of that orange color into the image and reserve that blue color just for the darker parts. And the split toning part of this tutorial is really to taste, and you can choose different colors or lower the saturation of this effect. It's really a creative choice that you have to make for your own photos. So again, here's the before and the after. We really only had to make changes in 2 or 3 different panels in Lightroom to make this image feel a lot brighter and happier, which matches the subject of the photo a lot better. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up so more people can see it, and hit subscribe along with the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Also, leave a comment and let me know what kind of video you want to see next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.